Okay, hello everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to our first podcast episode where we are together.
Yes,
It is so weird to actually talk to you in person.
well, recording and talking to me in person.
Yes, of course. But yeah, I'm so used to like looking at you via camera and just talking to you like that. But okay, let's start. We first want to say a little bit about ourselves. So I'm Ivana.
I'm Dunya.
And we are sisters, as we always say, and we are both biologists. So, biologists. I am an expat living in Germany for over a year now, and we've been living in different countries like Germany, Austria,
Belgium, Hungary.
yes, Chile even. I've been living in Norway, Sweden. I spent some time in Finland.
I live now in Spain.
Yes. So we always, when we talk, we take these countries into account. If you're considering moving or traveling there, even this podcast might be just right for you. Dunya, tell us a little bit about yourself, except living in Spain.
I studied in Serbia. Then I moved to Austria to do my PhD there. I finished my PhD there. Then I moved for rather personal reasons to Spain. And now I work and live here in Spain. I'm actually freshwater biologist. This is in short.
And the only difference is that I am a marine biologist, studying to be marine biologist. So in this podcast, we are going to talk about basically the situations and the events that kind of made us thinking about moving abroad. What was kind of the trigger or the last drop that was like, okay, we are moving. We are not there anymore. Also, we're going to discuss about how much energy it actually kind of took us to move.
Emotional energy.
Well, emotional and financial. Also, we will be talking about our thoughts while preparing for the move. What was we were thinking about our life. How is it going to be in that abroad? How it would be to leave family and friends behind? Were we afraid of this social isolation or even language isolation? Because we both moved to the countries where we don't speak the language of the country at the moment. I mean, you spoke some German when you moved to Austria, but it was still not enough to work.
No, definitely. When I moved to Austria, I was working basically the whole time I was working in English. My German improved in the meantime. Outside of my workspace, I could do most things on my own in German. Also at my workplace, when I needed to really, when I really needed to talk to some people, it was only possible in German. Yes, but for my work and also for communicating with most of my friends, if not all of them, I only use English. So yeah,
I remember a little anecdote when we went to visit you. I mean, I was still so young, and we were at the parking lot, and we didn't know how to pay, and it was this garage, and we came with the whole family, and our mother was like, "Okay, Dunya, speak, ask him how to pay and what to do." And you went to the counter, and of course, the guy didn't speak any English. So you had to speak in German, and you were so quiet because you were not sure of your German, even though it was
this is
there.
basically summarizing most of my time in Austria.
Yes,
But yes,
but that's how it works when you are learning the new language and when you are getting rid of this language barrier. So I think it was also really good it would be good to touch that topic. But in the end, we are going to talk about how we actually felt when we moved. So after all this energy spent and all the time and money and everything basically we went through, how it felt to be in that new country.
yes, and I would say how it felt like shortly after we moved and how it feels now. Well, at least in my case, because you didn't move so long time ago, but I can now say from this distance of almost now 10 years.
Yes, I moved over a year ago, but I haven't been in Germany for 3 months now, 3.5. And I have to say that I feel strange anxiety going back because I just moved there and then I left. So I don't know what's there for me. So it's a different exam.
I am pretty sure it's going to be fine. Not many things actually change.
Yeah, of course. But yeah, so let's dive right in and let's start talking about our first topic of the day.
Apologies, and there are some leftovers from my cold from a week ago.
I'm sure it's going to be fine. But yeah, so what were the situations and events that made you think about moving?
This is something that maybe I shortly explained in one of the earlier episodes, but there were actually several things I mentioned like partially in the previous episode. I will repeat and maybe add a little bit. The first thing is that my career was not going anywhere. That actually in Serbia it was very difficult to with biology degree, especially ecology degree in biology, and I had one job for around 10 months. It was at the hospital complex in Belgrade, one of the biggest in the Balkans, actually. I was working as an ecology specialist or ecology assistant in health. My task was to mostly make sure that all sorts of medical waste that were disposed are disposed in accordance with regulations. And my contract was not prolonged. I mean, I also the job was also a little bit a dead end job because it was not like this would, if I stayed there, if I got a permanent position, this is what I would do until the end of my career. And then when it ended, I didn't know how to feel. Like at one point, of course, there is this uncertainty and you feel that even that little you had, it was better than what you have at that moment. But yes, on the other hand, it was maybe a good thing that this happened. And it was at that moment, I was also feeling that it's partially a good thing. And then I started focusing a lot on other options and what is that I really want to do, because this job actually was a job that my father helped me find because he just didn't want me to be unemployed. It's like parents and they always know the best. He helped me find this job. But this was not the job that I actually had in mind when I studied biology. And the other thing was that actually I had also in my private life, I just had a breakup. And this was like a long relationship. It lasted for several years. And then when you're in a relationship, of course, you need to think also what are our plans, not what are my plans. And once this relationship ended, I found myself for the first time after several years being actually able to think what is the thing that I want to do and where I want to be without thinking about somebody else. And yes, then these two things are what made me make a decision.
I want to add that when you think of, I mean, when you finished ecology, when you finished your degree, I remember that ecology was not popular in Serbia at all. And people didn't know what ecology is. And especially after you found that job, after our father got to that job, everybody thought that ecologists are just people collecting trash. And
which kind of was my first job.
exactly. So then when you got this job, you kind of proved everyone wrong, which of course there is nothing wrong collecting trash. I mean, you have a degree and you're starting your PhD and then everybody associating you with that.
For me, the nature of the job that it was related to the trash was the least of my problems because trash is very important. Proper management of trash, of all sorts of trash. I mean, in this case, it was a medical trash, but medical waste. Let's call it medical waste. But all sorts of waste, like a proper management is extremely important nowadays. We all know what of kind of problems inappropriate disposal of waste can cause. I had no problem with collecting trash, and no matter how they called it, doesn't matter. But yes, it was the other problems is that this job, it was a dead end job. Plus, the political situation in the country was getting complicated, and it just continued getting more complicated over time. I think now we are at the peak actually of this. And yes, I mean, this was not a good time to search for a biology ecology job in Serbia.
But talking about trash, I can see how living in Austria changed you. But the other thing that you mentioned about being on your own for the first time after a few years, I think it's also really important and thank you for mentioning it, because you started dating this person when you were in your bachelor studies. And I think almost your whole bachelor studies, you were together.
Since my second year, 1 year and a half of my bachelor, and then 2 years of my master.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to think about moving abroad, especially because I think that he didn't show much of interest about that. And then, as you said, you were thinking about the two of you and you were thinking about what the two of you would want. So when you broke up and when you found yourself in a situation that you're looking only out for yourself, I bet it was hard.
Of course, this is another thing. Again, similar with like with the job. At one point, first it was terrifying because for the first time in several years, I was totally on my own. And actually, to be on your own in your mid, I mean, I know this is going to sound
In
ridiculous,
Serbia.
but in your mid-20s in Serbia, just breaking up a relationship and people coming and telling you that you are never going to get married because now you are too old. On one side, it was terrifying, but on the other side, it was, yes, liberating because very shortly after I realized that I finally can dedicate myself. And not that I completely neglected myself throughout this relationship, but I realized that I can also dedicate to what I want to do for myself. And yes, then it felt good actually. I gave one example to my colleague at the time when I told her I feel amazing because I realized that I can go to a bar and have a coffee with myself. And not feeling ashamed to have a coffee with myself. And to say something like this in Serbia, I think not everyone would understand what you actually mean.
I really remember that he was kind of telling you that if you go to to have a coffee with yourself, then you're crazy.
No, it's just about him. It's like this is, I would say, mainstream opinion, or at least it was at the time. I mean, I don't know how the situation is now, but this is nothing strange. I actually don't even remember this specific case. I just remember the feeling that in general this was observed as something strange.
I was young when you were dating. And I just remember after we broke up, when we were at the vacation, summer vacation together, that was one of the things that you said that was very weird. Not about him, but very weird about our society in general.
Yes, about
So
society, yes.
finding partners is very young, and I don't know, marrying them very young, you just are left not developed completely as a person, like your is not developed completely. Probably for you at the time it was a bad thing, but later on you kind of grew to like it.
Yes, I would first like to highlight that everyone is mature at their own time. Everyone is getting to know themselves at their own time. Here, I will not generalize. In my case, at least, I met this boyfriend when I was 20, almost 21. And yes, I was not knowing myself enough. And once I broke up with him, I realized that this is a time that I actually have to meet myself first before I start meeting other people. And what is that I want? Because otherwise I will not be good for anybody and I will not be good for myself or for anybody else. And this is just it. And for me, it was too early. It felt good to have finally some time for myself. I realized that I want to do a PhD, that I want to continue with my career, that I want to go abroad, not just because uh, I wanted to go for my career, but I also wanted to like try living in another country. How is that going to work for me? How is that going to feel if I'm going to manage? And yes, I mean, and I was in a position to do that.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it doesn't really feel like you're in a position to do that.
No, of course, no. This is from this perspective. Yes.
Yes, in the beginning, I mean, you feel lost and you have no idea you're going to be able to do that. And you have no idea what it takes to do that, but you did it. So I think that's very important to highlight.
I always have this feeling when you are thinking about trying something new and you're not sure if you're going to succeed and it's super complicated. There is this kind of saying that if you don't try it, nothing for sure is going to change. And even if you try and fail, every time you fail, you're going to learn something. You're going to get out of that stronger and with more knowledge, and you can apply that knowledge to try again and improve. And at the end, even if you eventually give up, you would be at the same point where you were without trying at all. But I'm sure not this not would be the same point because you would learn in any case a lot.
But also, what you told me once is that if you make it to go abroad, and if you don't like it, the easiest thing you can do is to come back to where you were.
Yes, that as well. You can always go back home. So what were the reasons for you to decide to move, actually?
Well, you already kind of mentioned that you moved to Austria and that you really liked it. And in one of our previous podcasts, we are really discussing that into detail, how you went and what you experienced there. And we also discussed the culture differences and everything. Being a child, I was 15 when you move. And just visiting you a lot, I realized that I really like it. And I like how you feel there. I look at you and I can see that you are happier, you're much more relaxed, that you were basically a different person in a good sense, in a good way. And I really liked that. And also, whenever I went there, not just looking at you, but just experiencing on my own and myself, it really felt amazing. And the other thing kind of connected to that was that we were kind of traveling a lot with our parents. We visited many European countries, and of course we were tourists there. And of course it's always different when you go as a tourist and when your mommy and daddy are paying everything at the vacation. But just meeting different cultures, meeting different languages, getting in touch with different people, I really felt that okay, this is something I could do. That this is something I would like to do when I grow up. And doing these internships abroad, I was staying for longer in different countries, and I really liked it. I liked the way I was treated. I liked the environment. I like the people. I like this cultural exchange. So I really felt okay. I'm being
Yeah. If you could have a little bit taste of that, then you could see that with like a big certainty, it is going to be good for you. In my case, it was a bit different because the first time I actually went abroad was in 2014, for like 2 months, and I was already 26. And but still, it did not matter because it really was like everything that I was expecting to see. And this was a good thing. And yeah, then I was just even more determined to succeed in moving abroad long term. Yeah.
I really liked this culture, let's say, of people minding their own business. I know that in Germany, for example, in these smaller villages, people are kind of similar to people in Serbia. And I don't know how is it everywhere in Serbia, but for example, in our hometown, people know everyone and they know everything about everyone and they don't mind their own business. And I know that in Germany, in smaller villages, it's the same. Like everybody knows everyone, but is judging everyone, but knows everything about everyone. But there is a different aspect because in our university, it was the same. Like everybody knew everyone and everybody were judging everyone about whatever. And the professors as well were they were trespassing these boundaries a bit, I would say. And they were not shy to judge you. Of course, not everyone, but some professors were not shy to judge you on your personality. So I didn't like that folklore.
This is the subtle difference because of course when I was living in Austria, also here people were not really asking me like these kind of things that are very personal, trying to interfere in my life or whatever. But of course I heard from some colleagues who are like native German speakers that in these small villages people also like
Exactly.
to find out a bit more about your personal life, to ask a bit awkward questions. But I think what is this kind of subtle difference between these kind of two things is that in Serbia, you will meet person on the street and this person would like ask you immediately very personal questions. And then this person would, I would say, dare to give you advices how you should continue with your life. Opinion that there are so many things that you need to change in what you are doing right now, and sometimes even a bit aggressive with trying to push this. And I think even in Austria or Germany or Spain, if people ask you about your personal life, even if they give you some advice about it, it still would be on a different level. It would be way less intrusive because in Serbia, you sometimes feel that like something is awfully wrong with you if you don't agree with them, and they are so convinced that they know better for you that how is it possible that you don't see it? And sometimes you really start to like question yourself.
Speaking about that, I remember when I went in our hometown to do my nails in this salon, and the woman that was doing my nails, she asked me, "How are your sisters?" And I said they're good. And the first questions was, so your middle sister, does she have kids? I think our sister didn't have a child at the time, but then asked me, are they planning it? What they're going to do about it? And I don't remember what I responded. But then the second question was, Is Dunya married? Is she going to have children? It was really, I mean, these kind of questions are really personal. No one is entitled to ask you if you're going to have children and when and how many and these kind of things.
Good luck trying to explain that to people.
Exactly. I think those are the main points that we would like to express when it comes to kind of the situations and basically the events, what we said that made us move. But Dunya, what was the moment that kind of...
Yeah, but I think it was more or less what I said. But let's summarize. My contract expired. I had time to focus on searching for a job, and I also got out of the long-term relationship, and I could again focus on thinking what is that I really want to do. And then I focused on the execution of that aim, actually.
With all these events, it's really hard to pinpoint to the certain moment.
Yes, it was, of course, a bit of a process. But if I would need to summarize, I think it's these two things. Yes.
Yeah, it's also the idea that comes to your mind and it's kind of coming and going and you decide to do it and then you're like, would I do it? Then it gets more serious.
It's something that I was contemplating for years before that. It's not something that it just came to my mind once these things happened. I mean, I already had this in my mind before. Actually, once I finished my master's in 2012, before I got this job in 2013, I was searching for a job abroad, but I didn't have much luck. I was also a bit discouraged, maybe. At just some point, I stopped because I had this job, and then I focused a little bit more on the job. But I had this idea quite a while before actually I started really seriously working at that time, making it happen.
I understand.
But what was for you?
Yeah, I mean, you just said exactly what we mentioned so far, but I think what mostly discouraged me, and I think it's a bit similar to your reasons, it's the fact that I was at the university and it was really, you can see that there is no future there. You want to work in science, you want to stay in science, but the budget and the people that you would work with were just not working for me because, I mean, first, I really wanted to do marine biology. There is no way in the world I could do that in Serbia. The top that maybe I could do was connect with the Marine Institute in Montenegro and still work at our university in Serbia, but still that was not the life that I would want for me. And second, as I said, people are getting into your own personal business and they're really judging you at the university on any single level that they could. I will tell later on the thoughts where I really felt like I was judged and it was really it was discouraging. It was either, okay, I am completely going to be discouraged and just stay here and be unhappy for the rest of my life, or I'm just gonna do something about it and I'm gonna give my hell best and try to move abroad. And the second thing was I'm living with my mother in a bigger house, and we're living with my dog. And I really felt like that house was too small for us. We were fighting all the time over everything and anything. For when you move to Austria and before you moved, I kind of felt mostly connected to you. And you moved abroad, and I mean, you were coming every now and then. I was coming to visit you, but I really felt whenever I was abroad, like we are having so much better relationship. Like the relationship was completely different. And of course, maybe it would help if I moved to a different city in Serbia or something like that. But I really felt like, okay, if I don't move and if I don't go far away, we are not going to get along. And really, since I moved to Germany for long term, I feel like our relationship is flourishing. So I think that was, when I look at it back, that was one of the things that really made me kind of, okay, I have to do something.
It could also be just related with the fact that, yes, it's sometimes it's better to be on your own and then you get along better with the rest of family members because you don't so much like depend on each other.
Yes, and even I think that parents always want you to kind of depend in any way on them because I mean, I'm the youngest, so you and our middle sister depended on them for some time, and then I was the last one that kind of stayed depending on them. And now, I mean, when I find a job and stop getting any finances from them, then they're really going to be. They will have this feeling that they have grown up children. I think they still want to kind of have this feeling that they have little children that need support from them. And I think it's different when I am abroad finding my own way and they know, okay, if they give me some money or if we talk, it's really going to kind of improve our relationship. But if I'm at home and then just eating from their budget, or they have to pay bills for me, or we are always together, it's really feeling like it's the feeling that I'm dependent on them, but also that I'm a burden. So I feel like they have a different perspective. And whenever I was abroad for my internships, they were they were the same. They were kind of sending me this money. They were sending me a bit of money. They were asking me if I'm doing well. They were asking me about how it is abroad and this kind of thing. But it was not such a long period of time. So I could get the gist of it. But now that I really moved, it feels much better. I'm calling my mother and my father almost every day, and it's a different feeling. So of course, I mean, maybe that shouldn't be the main reason for a person to move abroad. And as I said, the reason that I mentioned before is far more far more important. It was far more important for me. But this thing really helped the case. Yeah, I would now. I think it's the good time to talk about the time and energy that this process took us and how it was for us.
And this is now we are diving in, I think, in a bit more difficult part. Okay, let me start because I did it first when I finished my master's, which was in September 2012. I started already looking for a PhD position abroad, but then I got this job in 2013 in April, and then I stopped. And these kind of 6 months that I was looking for a job abroad, I sent, well, several dozens of applications, at least official applications, or just like inquiries if there would be an option for me in the lab of certain researchers. And I got basically no response. I got into this phase when I was like happy to get a rejection letter. And then people would tell me, okay, we just went through all the applicants and you are the one who was not selected for an interview or a position, because this was, I think, among these dozens of applications, I think I have like several rejection letters overall. Then yes, in 2014, I started looking for a position again, and I realized that I also need to like a little bit change the approach. So I started my PhD in Serbia a couple of months actually before this contract ended, because I could see where what that was going actually. And I found myself being a PhD student in Serbia, in Belgrade at my old university. And this was something that I definitely did not want to push until the end, because I did not manage anything with this certificate of my master's. I wasn't getting any answers from abroad for any like competitive positions. And I was thinking like, okay, if I start my PhD, I finish my PhD, I think my chances to do a postdoc abroad, to work as a researcher abroad would be even,
You're buried.
yes, they would be even lower. And I realized, okay, I have to do something different. And thanks to this fact that I was a PhD student in Syria, I started sending more like these emails when I was asking for just going to some lab that, of course, was like fitting in my interests and my previous experience, and asking just like, I just come to see how your lab is doing, learn a couple of techniques. And yes, and of course, let's explore what are the fellowship options for me to visit a couple of months. And one of the first groups that I was sending an email to was at the time, my future thesis supervisor. She was a young postdoc at the time. She just finished her PhD. She's from Hungary, and she moved to Austria to do her postdoc at the time in a group actually of a guy who was also a young group leader. My email was not really like asking directly to go there. We really had a lot of common interests, and I was just asking like if we can collaborate in any way. And she was the one who immediately asked me if I would like to actually join their lab to work for a couple of months there. Of course, they didn't have the funding, so I would still have to find the funding. But yeah, at that point, this was for me like, I don't know, winning lottery, because this was the first any kind of positive answer I got in a while. And yes, then I started looking for fellowships. I found one. We started working on that. This was the first thing that I really had to write in English. And it was like really looking more or less like as a mini proposal, like a project proposal. And it felt so stressful because this was the first time I was doing something like this. So I won. I was in their lab at the end of 2014 for 2 months. And then, of course, I was amazed with everything I saw there. And then I asked if it would be possible if I would look for funding for like a full PhD position, if they would accept me as their student. She said yes. And then we started looking for options to finance my stay there for a couple of years to finish PhD. But it was difficult because in Austria, they had very few programs like grants for PhD students. And I got a couple of rejections. And in the meantime, they got a project on which they could employ me, but like not for the whole time of a PhD, also not for the full working hours. I had to apply for a student visa to be able to start with this contract. And this was in spring 2016, actually, that I got this first small student contract. Then I had like a half-time contract in February 2017. And finally, I got this fellowship from the Austrian Academy of Science with this funding in August 2017. It was over 3 years of journey until I really reached to this point of this financial stability, actually.
Yeah. We have podcast episodes talking about your move to Austria, and there is another one talking about my move to Germany.
For me, it was also a really important milestone when I got this student visa in 2016, because this was the first visa that enabled me to stay in Austria without counting the days and to be able to work, because on tourist stay in Austria without a visa, you cannot really work. So yeah, this was also really, really important milestone. But the real feeling that I am doing well there and that I am stable was in August 2017.
Yeah, exactly. But what I wanted to say exactly is that for you, it took how much, 3-4 years since you decided to move abroad until you got your first visa. So I can't even imagine what kind of stress and money issues you were going through during these 4 years.
It's like a lot of uncertainty. At the end, you don't know if you are going to succeed or not. You don't know you cannot try just one thing. You have to try at many things, many directions, because if you rely on just one potential solution, chances that he's going to work are very low. And it was very stressful because I didn't know if I was going to manage. I didn't know when this was going to happen. I didn't know under which conditions this was going to happen. So it was quite a lot. And a lot of money, as you said.
Exactly. And during this time, if I need to pay something more, do I have money to pay that? And is this the time for me to give up because something is not working? It's not happening.
No, there were quite some requirements. And then sometimes you're not even aware, once you start certain process, how much you're actually going to spend in the meantime. You think you know what the expense is going to be, but then there are many things that just pop up and say, okay, but you got to pay also this and that. And yes, it's very stressful.
I remember for me, it was the same. The same money wise, because for me, it took the one cycle and 1 year and I got the visa and I moved. But I remember that we had this list of requirements for getting the visa for studying, but also, of course, you know that you have to apply for master. In the beginning, you don't count that your application for masters is going to cost. I didn't take into account. I knew that I had to do IELTS exam, the language,
The English language, yes.
yes, you know that you're gonna have to do it, and you know it costs money, and you know it's a lot. But when you're thinking about everything, you just don't put it into account. As I said, there is this list of visa requirements for visa, and I knew that I had to get everything signed by the notary or stamped that as well, and that you have to get the translations, and you also had to translate your diploma. Or I remember that you were also translating.
Yeah, I was translating my diplomas when they asked me and when they didn't, because I remember at some point I got even there, then I had everything translated, even though I think nobody ever asked me for individual documents, and I had everything translated in German and English because I never knew which language is going to be the preferred one.
Exactly. So you never take these things into account in the beginning, because I remember when I was applying, the only thing I took into account was what was on their website, that I need 11,208 euros to deposit. And I was like, okay, this is going to cost this much. And then you actually get into the application process and you start applying for masters, and wow, there goes 90 euros. And you're like, okay, it's 90 euros. And then you have to take the proficiency exam, and it's like 250 euros. And the moment I was taking that exam, I remember how stressed I was, because I was thinking, oh my God, if I don't get the results that I really want to, then I have to pay 250 euros more. And I don't have that money. Then when you actually get into the process, you realize how costly it is.
Yeah, I mean, the financial aspect is just one. Of course, it's an important aspect, but yeah, there are many like emotional things also happening in parallel. There are many like family things happening in parallel.
I only applied for one master's because I mentioned in previous podcast that I was already in Germany for internships 3 times before starting my master's. So I already knew some people from there, and more importantly, I knew some people that were on the board deciding who gets enrolled. And one of the persons told me that, okay, we really want you because we like the way that you work, we like that you're coming each year and that you're interested, and you really need to write a good motivation letter, but we want you. And of course, sometimes when we get compliments, we don't believe in them. So I was still afraid, and I thought that, okay, maybe he wanted me then, but maybe during this year that I was not there, he changed his mind, or maybe he likes me, but the rest of the board doesn't like me. There is a lot of people on the board, but I was in the middle of the exams, so it was the only master's I applied for. So I was kind of gambling with my chances, but I just want to say this because that was the only application I paid for. If I was actually applying for more universities, it would be 90 euros per application to the university. I really think that people should think about it when they're applying, to all the costs that are following. And also, actually, now it came to my mind because I remembered when you were talking about moving abroad and that it took you so many years. And now that I said I moved in one cycle, basically, and I finished my university, I applied for visa and I got the visa and I moved. And it was all in 1 year, basically in a few months. And I remember that you told me that basically you should move as soon as possible. You were kind of not pushing me, but encouraging me to move for my bachelor's. And I remember when I started my bachelor's, you were mentioning, okay, maybe you can move for your master's, but if you start your PhD, it's going to be like,
I had my own like experience. Yeah, for me, this was the conclusion I came to when I started applying for a PhD. Yes, it would have been better if I did it when I was looking for my master's, so that I finished my bachelor in Belgrade and then tried to move already at my master's because it was easier. On one hand, it was easier because you relatively easily get admitted to Austrian universities, German universities, but on the other hand, you have to work. Once you move, you cannot count on your parents as a support. You have no grants or not many grants for master students. There are a bit more for PhD students. That means that either you are going to find some job in the lab, like, for example, in your case, which is less likely actually. Most students from Serbia or the Balkans that are studying in Vienna or in Austria in general are doing, these kind of typical student jobs, like in restaurants, in cafes, yes, McDonald's, whatever. Yes, basically anything to finance their studies, because of course their parents cannot support them. This is too expensive for Serbian parents. Then, of course, you are in this kind of struggle to combine working with studying. For me, I was very comfortable in Belgrade on my master's because I was just doing my master's. I had a scholarship. Firstly, for me, it was not very expensive. Living in a dorm in Belgrade, it's not expensive. Then I could always go to my parents because our hometown is relatively close to Belgrade, so we could also travel to the faculty. And of course, my parents were still giving me some money, but as I said, this was really not expensive. With this grant and a little bit of money from our parents, this was actually more than okay. It was quite comfortable. And yes, this was the positive side of it. But once you finish masters abroad, for you, there are many more options that you actually have if you are looking for opportunities after your master's. Because if you finish master at one of the EU universities, you can more easily get a job, you can get a PhD position, because in many cases they only count the fact that you have the diploma from an EU university, and sometimes they're not paying attention for the fact where you are from. And then this is, of course, much easier. This is why I was so much in favor of that. Yes.
Yes, I think when it comes to working and money in Austria, in both Austria and Germany, there is a little cap. And that is how many hours you can work, and how much money there is a limit to how much money you can earn.
This is in Austria as well, yes.
And especially as a student from abroad, as a foreigner. That's one of the things. And in Germany, for example, if I was earning the maximum amount, I would still need some support from my parents, because of course, if you're living in a dorm, I'm not living in a dorm, I'm sharing a flat, and that is a bit more expensive. So if a person lives in a dorm, maybe that would be enough, but also depends on the program in which the person is in, because I know that, for example, my master's program, the first 2 semesters were hell. We had courses as bachelors. We had 5 or 6 courses that were compulsory, and we were at the university the whole day, and I had a half-time job. And I was still struggling with making up the hours. And even though I was at the institute from morning until evening.
I have no personal experience, but in Austria, I heard stories that, yes, if you are starting as a student outside of the EU and you need to support yourself during your master's, for example, you are already kind of prepared that if the program is for 2 years, you are already kind of prepared that you're not going to finish it in 2 years. It will take you 3-4 years because you have to support yourself during that time. In Austria, at that time I was there, you could work as a master student 20 hours per week. I think it also depended a little bit on the kind of job that you find, because some jobs are paid better, some jobs are paid less. I would say on average, like with an average job, it was possible to support yourself with on your studies, but you had to live quite a modest life. You could pay for the flat, for food, but of course, this means that you would have to cook most of the time for yourself, eventually eat in some student cafeteria. You could pay for the public transport, or maybe go to visit your family once in a couple of months to Serbia, and that's it. There is no much space for many other things, but it was doable.
If you don't take into account that you have to pay the semester fee and that you have to pay the insurance, then if a person lives in a dorm, I think it would be possible with a full-time student job. But yeah, visiting the family and paying the insurance, I'm paying the insurance almost 150 euros a month. And
It's a lot. Yeah, I was in Austria. I think I paid a little bit less than 50 as a student.
exactly. What I like at least about our semester fee is that it's really low. It's 250 euros. In this 250 euros, we have the transportation ticket. So, and we have Deutschland ticket. That's a ticket that we can use all the public regional trains, buses, metros for free in the whole Germany. Maybe I wouldn't pay the German ticket, the Deutschland ticket, if I didn't have this one, but I would still need to pay the public transport. I'm moving around here with the bus, so I would have to have some ticket. The semester fee is really not high, but the insurance and my rent is unfortunately higher. The other thing that's really good, which I was really afraid of, are the books. I was in Serbia, we have to pay for the books. Every year you have to buy new books. Some professors really want you to buy the original stuff. We are not really, we are printing, right? We are going with the cheaper option, but you have to buy books. And in Germany, we get the presentations from the professors, which are in most cases even enough to prepare the.
There were some also courses in Serbia that were working like that.
Yeah, but they still tell you that they encourage you to buy this book, and then you don't know until you start preparing the exam whether the presentations are enough or not. But we got the presentations, and every single book that they told us that we have to study from, you could find it in the library. They don't expect you to pay for your education, in a sense. They don't expect you to buy their books, to really pay a lot of money so you can educate yourself. That is good.
Just to wrap up this topic, I just wanted to say, when we were talking about this time of moving, for you and me, it was quite different because you kind of had a clear plan, and for you, this happened quite quickly. For me, it was gradually and kind of spontaneous because I went to Austria to do another internship in the same lab for a couple of months. And yes, then they offered me this small contract, which actually meant that I need to get a visa. So I got the visa, but this still was like a temporary thing. And then I was kind of already moved there, but it was still like the finances that were a problem. And then in 2017, I got better contract. For me, when I moved, I did not know that I was actually moving, but I thought I was just going for a couple of months.
But I think you really took an unconventional way. I want to add one more thing. When we talk about finances, there is this scholarship called the DAAD, and they grant scholarships for to people studying in Germany who want to study in Germany from many different countries. So if people are considering moving to Germany for their masters, they should really check out this scholarship because I applied, I didn't get it, but I think they pay your health insurance. They give you 900 something euros per month. So you get money and the insurance. They pay for you for the tickets to move to this country. So you don't even have to pay flight
To Germany, basically.
to Germany. And I think that there's also some other benefits. So if a person gets it, it's amazing.
Would you still like to say something about this process of moving and thoughts? And
there is one more thing that I would like to add based on, I would say, personal experience. We were talking about how desperate we were and how we felt, but I just want to add that sometimes the environment can be really harsh from our own country. And I had two experiences that it happened that my own professors or people who are working at the university, but they're not my professors exactly, were really giving me comments that were discouraging. So one of the situations was when my own professor asked me, because I was coming to an end of my bachelor's and he was my professor in the first and the second year of some courses. And at the end of my studies, I was working for him for a short while. And he asked me, okay, now that you're finishing, so what do you want to do for a master's degree? What are your plans? And I said, I would really like to go to Germany and study marine biology. And he was like, I wanted to go to Germany. I want to go to Germany. And I was like, well, okay, what can I say? And he was telling me how, of course, I'm not gonna make it. And if he's being too harsh now and he's joking, but if he really wanted to go, he could have. So this kind of narrative that people don't believe in you and that they are feeling kind of offended at our university. Like they feel offended if you want to go abroad, because I think that at some point they had ideas and wishes to try science abroad, but they didn't do it. They didn't.
Yes, I think most people would just break your wings and like make you do the same as they did, so that just so they don't feel that they should have tried.
Precisely. If I don't make it, then they will feel better about themselves. And there was another situation when a professor from the university who is working in one of the institutes in Serbia, I was in a group of friends. We were all studying biology, and he asked all of us, okay, so what are your plans? What do you want to study? What do you want to do for masters? And I remember they were all saying, yes, I want to do my masters in Serbia, this and this topic. And on purpose, I didn't want to say anything. But then I was the last one I didn't say anything when they were talking. So he was kind of curious. So he asked me, and I said, yeah, I want to go to Germany. And right away, he started firing at me. This is people who are always thinking that it's better abroad. I know people who went to Germany and came back because they couldn't handle it. Of course, you're not gonna make it. And really giving me literal comments like that. And I remember that I was like, okay, I'm not going to listen to this because I feel anger. I feel that this person is saying this from a different place.
It's not that he cares about you in any sense or that he wants you good or bad. It's just that it's his thing. They just want to make themselves feel
just
better.
Pure personal unsatisfaction. And I just wanted to give these examples and to say this because I'm quite sure that wherever someone lives, this is going to happen.
Yes, actually, when you mentioned this, I also remember one situation when I came back from the first internship in 2014, when I came back to my university in Belgrade. I did not tell them that I want to actually switch and do my PhD abroad. I was kind of hiding that from them. At that point, not kind of, I was yes, I was really on purpose hiding because I knew that if I would tell them this openly, they would never ever sign any recommendation letter in case I needed for some fellowship or another student stay abroad. So I was keeping it to myself. And then I even had like these two supervisors of mine kind of changed a little bit attitude towards me. I think my perspective already changed quite a lot in these 2 months that I was in Austria. And at this point, I could see that, okay, it's not just my personal gut feeling that things are done a little bit in a wrong way in Serbia, but it's like, okay, here in Austria, people do things differently, and this is how things can be done. And then I try to implement that at my university, I mean, with my supervisors, and of course, they cut it immediately. They said, we are not going to change anything, and yes, here the things are getting done the way we say. And they were even like, yeah, we know that you now were a bit abroad and you think that things can be done differently, but no, we are going to tell you that this is just a wishful thinking, and we are going to continue doing as things were done like for ages now, and we are your supervisor. This means that you are going to do what we tell you.
I remember you were hiding it, and a paper was about to come out.
Yeah, and I had a manuscript from the research that we did in 2014 in Austria. It was coming out in early 2016, and I was still student there. Even though I was not really communicating much with them, I was not sure how they are going to react to that because this was going completely around them. But no, this went well. I assume they would like it if I have offered them a co-authorship, but they were also aware that they did not really contribute to that at all, and they could not really complain too much. They just said that I should have told them because just to prepare them. So now I have one manuscript that is like published, and I can use it maybe for my thesis, and that was it. And I think at some point I even came very close to being able to finish my PhD in Serbia, as I just needed to sit and write something that would be a PhD thesis. I did not get there, but I was close to there. But I just did not want to even think about it. I just wanted to change. And it was not just them, but I think this is at least my perception. I told everybody at the faculty that yes, we have another rebel student who was spending some time abroad, and now they want to apply new things here that we are not very much happy about. And I could see other professors, some of them, they were even mean, and the other one were ignoring me. It's like everybody, maybe I'm saying like things that is just my personal perspective, but this is this kind of working environment where people cannot personally stand each other in most cases, but once they feel endangered from the changes that are coming from the outside, they stick together like crazy. And then they're all united in defending the system that's not working for decades now.
Or the common enemy.
Yes, but they find a common enemy, which is a student who spent a couple of months abroad, and so the things can be done differently. When I say differently, it's a little bit more modern and in the spirit of this century, then they are super united to like, I'm completely break your spirit and explain you that nothing is ever going to change there. So,
but it's really important to say, to stress out that not everybody's like that. There were some amazing people that also encouraged us, that supported us, and that taught us a lot, despite the fact that we were abroad. Of course, it's not everyone that is like that, but we really had some experiences. Both of us had more than one. So it's really like a disease, but not everyone is infected, I would say.
Yes. And actually, one more thing I want to say on this topic that I just realized, but I think it's very important, is that for me, moving process was actually quite a long thing. And I got my residence permit in 16 in April. And like from the perspective of me from say 1 or 2 years earlier, it was something that it meant that I succeeded because I got a residence permit to stay in Austria, and now everything is going to be fine. And of course, this was a great achievement, but this made me realize that if I have a residence permit, but I don't have a funding and I don't have a position that is going to like finance me doing my PhD, it's going to be very difficult. My group at that time did not have much funding. They said that there will be something maybe from January 2017, and then we came up to idea that maybe I could go for a study visit in Belgium to spend a couple of months there because they cannot finance me until the end of the year. And that at the same time, it would be a great opportunity for me to learn some new techniques. And this group in Belgium was actually an amazing group. For the research I wanted to do, it was like very well established and kind of famous in the field. For me, this would be an amazing chance. It was feeling like a dream once they said that, yes, I'm welcome to go there. But again, you realize that, yes, without money, it's going to be difficult. And I started looking for fellowships to go there as a student, as an Austrian student to go to Belgium. And then I went to Belgium in October 2016. I got several fellowships, actually. I got the Erasmus fellowship for 2 out of 3 months. For the third month, I got another fellowship from the University of Vienna. And also I had some travel support from one of the Austrian agencies. So I had 3 fellowships. My calculation was that once I pay for the flat and some things related to studies, like insurance, I have 10 euros per day left. And this was really tough. This was a point when even though I managed to accomplish one of the goals that earlier looked as one of the main goals to achieve, I realized that there is still quite a lot to be done. And I was in Belgium, of course. One thing was that it felt like a dream coming true. Belgium is really nice. The department where I was, it was also really nice. I learned a lot. People were also nice, but this was a very difficult period for me emotionally because I am looking for this from since 2014. So I have been working on this very actively with all my energy toward this goal. And now 2.5 years later, I am living on 10 euros per day in Leuven, which is on one hand, like you got some cheap eating options because you are a student, but still like 10 euros per day in Leuven is definitely, even in that time, like almost 10 years ago, it was not enough. And it was like, this was my first chance to go to Belgium, and not just to go to Belgium, to go to this part of Europe in general. And I wanted to go to see places, but like
With 10 euros a day?
yes, it was like, okay, maybe I would not be able to see that much. For example, one thing that I remember that I was a bit sad about is that it was end of November, December. It was time of the Christmas markets, and I love Christmas markets. I'm crazy about them, and I don't buy things at Christmas markets, but I like to buy a drink and eat something from there because it's
Just
feel the spirit of the holidays. Of course, I could not spend €5 for a drink at this market at the time. No, it was just not possible. And then I also got even like another law at that time when my thesis supervisor from Austria told me that they have some problem with the funding that I was supposed to get for the January 2017. For some days, it was a bit uncertain if they would be able actually to employ me from 2017, which would already be a half-time position, so like already barely enough to start doing my PhD research, but it was something at least. And then they said they had some problems with this funding, and then I was like, I am super, super tired. I am not planning on giving up, but I am super tired of this. 2.5 years later, I am still struggling. I achieved many things, but I am still not finding real solution to be able to actually finish my PhD. And like it was quite a desperation at the time. And then going back home after this internship in December for holidays with my family, they having thousands of questions. What did I do in Belgium? Am I going back to Austria? Who is going to finance me in Austria? For how long? For how much? Am I going to find any kind of long-term solution? And this kind of stuff. It was just real Christmas spirit.
But you started living normally, I would say, in Austria only when you got this scholarship. And before that, you were really struggling with the papers, with paying for certain documents, applying for different visas and things like that. And I would say that doing your master's abroad and also doing like an internship or staying abroad, even if you got Erasmus, you got 3 different ways to be funded and you still struggle. And I really think that it's going to happen to everyone. It's really hard to self-sustain yourself abroad until you get a real job. And thank you for saying this, because I think there is another thing, we can point out here. And that's, I would say that in Germany and Austria, they really appreciate students going abroad, getting more experience. And even my supervisors in Germany and my bosses in Germany, they're so happy when I tell them that I want to go abroad and get some more experience. And they in Austria told you basically to go to Belgium, and they encouraged you.
Yes,
And
really encouraged.
and another part is that universities encourage us in a way that there are so many different scholarship opportunities that we can apply for, and that people in basically like from 50 to 100% chances or times they get it. So even though it's not enough to live on that money for the whole month, they still want to help out and they still want to encourage you. And I think that's one of the really good things about the universities abroad. That's a good way to wrap this part up. And now that you were saying basically about the whole process and that you were talking about the moment before you got your PhD funding, how did it feel when you got it? And how did it feel when you finally didn't have to worry about when you are going to apply for next visa, if you are going to need money in in the near future? How did it feel to just be there?
First thing is that I started living abroad already, in 2016. But first, I felt this relief that I got this residence permit, and that now I am going to be there for most of the time. But then I realized, okay, then it comes this kind of harsh truth that you realize, okay, now but you're going to spend way less time with your family, even less than you actually wanted to. And then you start figuring out new ways how to meet with your family. So they visit me, I visit them. And in parallel, this was a still difficult period for me regarding the fundings. And yeah, then this thing with Belgium actually happened. This period is very mixed feelings, because you finally achieved at least one part of what you wanted to do. But there are these kind of uncertainties, and then you start missing your family. For that reason, I was going to Serbia in early 2000s a bit more times that I was supposed to, like for a couple of days, just so I can spend some time with my family and friends. At the same time, I was on a half-time job, and I was saving to buy a car because going by bus and the train, it was just a nightmare. So it was like in between. I want to save as much money as possible, and I'm already not earning enough for that. On the other hand, I still want to see them in the meantime. And once I finally got this fellowship, it was opening so many doors because I was able to get the credit for a car. I was able to start meeting people outside of the village where I was living. And this finally gave me the option to feel this kind of freedom. Exactly what I wanted to do. Yes, I liked living in Lunds. In Lunds am See, this was the name of the village in Lower Austria where I lived and did my PhD. But of course, I wanted this freedom to get out of there from time to time because there I had my colleagues. Then we became friends. They were great. But get out of there to meet other people, but also to get out of there with them sometimes somewhere. I just wanted to feel this freedom that I can choose if I want to spend a weekend in Lund or if I want to go somewhere else. And yes, I was able finally to find my own flat. I mean, with a flatmate, but still, like I didn't have to live at the institute anymore. And then it was great. Then it was finally living the life that I imagined. Yeah. So from August 2017, it was finally what like I imagined it from the beginning, and I could also go visit my family more often with a car. I could even save some money. Finally, then things got a bit more stable and going upwards. And this felt very good, yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing because you were living at the institute and sometimes you were even sharing a room with someone.
Yeah.
And I guess it felt like a great upgrade when you were able to have your own room. But
The flat was quite comfortable. Each one of us had her own bedroom. I did the math. In Lund, the flats are really not expensive, or at least they were not 7, 8 years ago. And I could afford to rent my own flat. But this would go at the cost of the savings or like taking a trip from time to time. Actually, once I got this PhD fellowship, which is like a normal PhD student salary in Austria, I was traveling quite a lot. And I was able to have my own car to pay for it. And I wanted to save some money. Then I realized, okay, let's make a compromise regarding the flat. Because if I take my own flat, then some other thing will suffer.
it's like choosing your priorities. And also your flatmate, love her.
Flatmate, I have another flatmate now.
Yes, she was great, and you were getting quite well along. I mean, I didn't notice that it was an issue to share a flat with her. And I think you even had you had a dining room with a kitchen, and you had a living room. Yes, so it was quite comfortable.
Yes, for me it was important that I move in with someone that I already know, and I knew her for several years. We were even for 2 months sharing a room at the institute. So it was even longer. But anyways, if we were getting along for these several months, living together in the same room, or the flat is going to be fine for sure. The only thing that I missed in this kind of arrangement is that I wanted my family to come to visit me. And in my flat, there was no space. So the only way they could stay in my flat was like, for example, whenever you were coming, you could stay in my room, but not our parents. So I would have to find them a place to stay somewhere in the village. So this was my next aim to achieve, to be able to find a place to live alone. When my family is visiting me, they don't have to pay for the accommodation, but they can stay with me. Friends as well from Serbia.
Now that I think about it, you really have this tradition of hosting people, because really
Started a long time ago.
yeah, since you moved to Austria, we were coming all the time, Ljubica and I mean our sister and I, and our parents also. When you moved to Monzen, you had people coming all the time.
This was the first thing that I was saying to myself: I'm not going to share flat with anyone, and I want to have at least couch in the living room where I can host people. So how about you?
For me, I remember as clearly as it was yesterday, but I mean, it wasn't that long ago. The first day, I just felt a relief when I arrived and just brought my bags. I shared a flat with my best friend from Kiel. And I remember I arrived and she made me a coffee and I was just speechless. I couldn't talk. It was really weird. And she already, she had some food like bread spreads and bread and some vegetables. And she told me, okay, you can have some. Don't worry. You don't have to go food shopping today. Just take it easy. And I remember I wasn't so tired, but I was it was like coming out from a shock. I don't know. I felt like my adrenaline is wearing off. And I told her, okay, it's better if I go shopping today so I can walk a bit and just like get my mind straight. And I went to the supermarket and I was looking at the tomato and I started having a panic attack because as I said, my adrenaline was going. And I think I just realized that, okay, this is it. This is permanent and I'm in this new country. And then my anxiety just rocketed and I was looking at that tomato and I was feeling so sick and I thought, okay, I'm going to vomit here in a supermarket. Like what's happening? And then I realized, okay, you're having a panic attack. So just think about the things from the outside. Just look at that tomato. Describe this tomato. Just look at the things you want to buy. Just buy stuff. Don't think about your feelings. Don't think about your inside self. And I remember I just came back home and then I told my friend everything and we discussed it in very depth. But still, as I said, I had this relief, but I wasn't actually aware how far I was from Serbia. I was just working and studying and I was really, because after that experience, I was really busy. So I remember one day after work, it was already around summer, and one day after work, I just sat across the institute and I was looking at the institute and I was looking at the river and I was like, shit, I am in Germany. I live in Germany. Right next to me is a river that's going into the fjord right here. I'm on the Baltic Sea. It was like a slap on my face. It was really something that I was not aware of and that I didn't see coming. I think it's quite common for people that they experience this when you're getting the visa, when you're really stressed about the visa, that you're just thinking about it, that you're pushing for it, and you're not thinking about your surroundings and where you are at the moment. And when you move and when you arrive to this place, you're not aware of it. And your adrenaline and your cortisol are just going down, but your anxiety is. But now I'm so aware that I'm living in Kiel that I was away for quite some months, but I know, okay, I'm going to Kiel, like I'm going home. So I have like this vacation. I'm with you. I'm going to visit my family in Serbia after visiting you. And Kiel is home. I have this in my head right now, but then, oh my God, yes, this realization that now you have a new home inside. It took me also a while. I had many tasks to fulfill and it took quite a long time. Exactly. In my case, it was just very, very gradual. So I didn't have this kind of shock effect. And maybe just to say as a last note that, yes, I mean, now from this perspective, 9 years later, I would still do it all over again. It was worth it because it gave me so much. And not just the fact that I moved abroad and that I managed to do things for my career that I wanted, but I really I have so many wonderful memories and I had so many great experiences. Also, like in the sense that I visited many places, I met many people, I met my husband in Austria, and it was just worth it. My idea of going abroad and what I would get from that, it was not just true, but it was like underestimation. I got so many things from that, and I'm so grateful for that, actually. And you're applying for the Spanish citizenship. Yes, I'm going to apply very soon for Spanish citizenship. I don't see myself moving away from here for a while, and I definitely don't see myself going back to Serbia anytime soon. I don't say that it's going to be like that for everybody, but in my case, it was really everything I imagined and more. I would do it all over again. And I would say the same. We know that I've been in Germany only for a year, so it's quite different. And you have way more experience than me. But definitely, I like it so much abroad. I like the working ethics. I like the working environment. I like the people that I met abroad. I like the city. I live in Kiel. It's not such a big city, but I mean, for my standards, it is. It's 250,000 people. I love it. And I feel great there. Germans are not really fans of Kiel. I don't know why. If you compare, for example, Munich, or the cities with history and old buildings, and even Hamburg. Such a beautiful city with all these cathedrals. And I think when they think of a beautiful city, they think of these kind of cities. But for me, I just feel so safe there. I feel so good there. So it's just priceless. I would definitely like to stay.
Okay, so with this, I think we are wrapping it up. Just to say at the end, again, we have an Instagram page called Auslander Sisters. We have a Facebook page, Auslandering, also our blog that we are publishing weekly posts. It's auslanderin.blog. And we have a Buy Me a Coffee account, also called Auslandering, the same as this YouTube channel. We are looking forward to share with you many more topics about expat lives. And yeah, stay tuned. Okay. Bye.